Hello, I have with me today two of Yamaha's P series pianos, including the very top of the range, the P255 piano here on my left, and I've got the one directly below it in the range, P115 here on my right. Have a look at the ePianos website for all the latest deals and offers on these pianos. So I'm going to compare the two together. If you're comparing the two together at the moment, hopefully I can help you come to an informed decision. So just before I get into explaining the differences between the two, I'm going to play them both. I've got them both set on piano. Let's have a quick listen to what they sound like. Starting with P255. And P115. Okay, well my first impression just sitting and playing them both is P255, that sound was just so much better, so much richer, so much deeper to play with. P115, when you put the two of them side by side, instantly the sound difference is quite noticeable. P115 just doesn't quite cut it. It's great, but P255 is the winner in the sound test first of all. Now, being in the same series, there's a lot that makes them similar. Quickly to go over those, both of them have 88 keys, same as a real piano. Both of them are more or less the same size. The only difference in dimensions, the P255 is 5 centimeters deeper, so it might not go in the same gig bag, and the weight is the other thing. Now the P255 is a little bit heavier, probably about 5 kilograms heavier. This is because it's got inside it bigger speakers and a nicer key mechanism that weighs a bit more. But as you'd expect from the P series range, much is similar. They've both got speakers built in and there's an awful lot that's the same. So the more crucial thing, if you're comparing the two, is what's different between them. The most obvious thing, if you are comparing them, is of course the price. The P115 is about £470 at the moment. P255, well, it's twice as expensive. It's over £1,000, just over £1,000, and I'm going to explain exactly why that is and why you do get your money's worth. Okay, so the most important difference between the two for me is actually the key mechanism itself. On P115, yes, it's a weighted key, but it's what Yamaha call their GHS, their graded hammer standard keys on here, okay? So you sit and play it, yes it does feel like a piano to play, but if you compare that with P255, which has what we call the graded hammer effect, this is a more advanced technology, makes it feel closer to a real piano. So playing the two side by side, immediately P255 feels heavier. Okay, now it's designed to feel like playing a grand piano, and it definitely does that. If you get to a shop and you can try them, you'll see it instantly. It feels heavier and it's quieter. It's not as clunky. If I turn the volumes down on these and play, and I won't talk while I'm doing it, I'll just play a quick scale. P155, P255. Okay. It's quieter, it's softer, the action is smoother, and I prefer it to play, and I think you probably will too if you get to try one. Now, while we're talking about keys, what the key tops are made from is different as well. Now, P115 here has plastic keys. Now, there's nothing wrong with plastic keys really, but you run your fingers along them and it gets a bit clammy, they get a bit stuck. So when you're doing fast passages, it gets a little difficult to play. It's not a total handicap, I can't say that. I still think they're great. But in comparison to P255, which has synthetic ivory key tops, it's so much better. It feels more like a traditional piano. Traditional pianos, of course, would have been using ivory, but we don't use that anymore. But to simulate it is a synthesized ivory, and it just feels lovely. It feels nice and smooth to the touch on the black keys as well. So on key mechanism and the feel of the keys, P255 is better. Now, the other hugely important thing is the polyphony number. Now, you've probably heard this in other comparisons I've done. The polyphony number is the amount of keys that can be played at the same time. Now, it's not a case of you've only got 10 fingers, therefore you can only play 10 notes. It's the amount of keys that you can play and the keyboard will make the sound of, even when your foot's on the sustain pedal. Now, the P255 has a polyphony number of 256. The higher the better. 256 compared to 192 on the P115, which is still cracking, still really good for a keyboard under £500. But P255 has the same as Yamaha's Clavinova range, their digital piano flagship series. And what that means in layman's terms is you can put more feeling, more emotion into the playing, you can play with more light and shade. I always say this, it's like a painter having access to more shades of a colour in their palette. That's what it means. It's larger on P255, and that again for me makes it a better musical instrument. So another really important thing is the speakers and the amplifiers that are built in to the keyboards. Both of them have their own built-in speakers, so you don't need to have extra speakers to play through, although you can if you want to. So P115 has a 7-watt amplifier and two 12cm speakers and a couple of little tweeters in there as well. Now, that's great, but again we're doing a comparison here, and the amplifier on the P255 is twice, in fact it's over twice as big. It's a 15 watt amplifier, and you've got two sets of speakers on either side as well. That is why you get this great big boost in the mid and the bass, and all these extra string harmonies are allowed to come through and give you this full swelling sound. So P255 on speakers is definitely winning. It's twice as powerful, so better speakers there, absolutely. So just going through some of the statistics of the two pianos here, we have the amount of voices. Okay, so we've got 14 voices on P115 and we have 10 more on P255. So I've had a look, and you get an extra piano in there, an extra electric piano. You also get a very good choir sound and good string sounds, which I'll go into a bit later on. But you also get some sounds to use with the split function. Now, split function is where you can cut the keyboard down the middle and have one sound on the right hand, one sound on the left. So you can play a bass line or something with your left hand while you play piano on the right hand. You can record on them both as well, but there are significant differences here. You can only record one song on P115. On P255 you can record 10 songs on there, so it's a much bigger memory for recording your own music. Both of them have rhythms as well. Oddly enough, P115 has 4 extra rhythms compared to P255. For me, rhythms, I don't really use them when I'm using this sort of piano, because they're just drums on their own rather than any other accompanying instruments. But it's quite nice to have some rhythms in there if you need them. Now, when it comes to inputting and outputting music, there's some quite significant differences between the two. The P255 has an external input. So if you've got music on your computer, on your phone, on your iPad, you can, using a mini jack, plug it into the back and it will play through the speakers. Now P115 doesn't have that facility, so you cannot play music through it. The other thing is taking what you've played, your recordings, and putting it on a different device, like a computer or whatever you want to do. Now P115, you can do that, but you have to take a cable, a USB A to B cable, from this straight into your device, like your iPad or your laptop, something like that. Whereas P255 has a USB flash drive input. This makes life so much easier. It's just here on the right hand side. You can record your music, save it to a USB stick, take it and put it on a computer, or indeed keep your saved recordings on there. So if you're playing a live show, you could put something in that you've recorded previously while you go, to the bar or something like that, and it'll play your music. Okay, so there's a few big differences that I want to show you that just playing them for the past hour or so I've learnt and I'd like to share with you. The first thing is the string sound on both of these. They both have, as you'd expect, a nice string sound. But when you compare the two, you really feel the benefit of that bigger amplifier and those speakers on here on the P255. If I set the P115 to strings, here we go, and I'll just play. Okay, that's not bad, but when I put it on P255 on strings, you notice it immediately. The larger amplifier on there powering the speakers just gives you that edge. Listen to this. Another thing I like on here is there are two versions of strings. You've got your strings as you've heard it there. There's also what we call slow strings. This is where the string doesn't come in immediately, it just has a bit of a swell to it. So when you play, it's not so instant. It's quite nice to use that slow string with a piano in a dual sound where you play two sounds on top of each other. This is possible on both of them. Here we go. And it's that terrific cinematic effect, but it's a bit nicer than having the strings come in instantly for them to just sort of follow what you're playing. Now, I mentioned that choir before. Now, it's not often you hear a choir this good. Now, P115 doesn't have choir on it, but if I can just load up the choir sound here, this is one of the best choirs I've ever heard, and it's quite usable. That's the thing. I thought I can hear myself using that in lots of compositions, because choirs typically on keyboards up until recently, they weren't very good. They're a bit too synthesized, but I think this is, here we go, this is very good. Have a listen. Again, if I combine that with a piano sound, it's quite effective. I quite like it, that choir sound. Now, as well as being able to play two sounds on top of each other, as I said you can do on both of these keyboards, what you can do on P255 as well is you can split the keyboard in two, which means I can play one sound on my right hand side and a different sound on the left. You can't do that with this one here. I'll give you an example of how it works. If I set my split point first of all, somewhere I'm not going to go over it, and I choose, here we are, this bass and cymbal sound for the left hand, and I've got piano on my right hand, so I can play almost like a little jazz trio. Have a listen. that's quite a nice thing. If you're a solo pianist and you go out and play gigs, to make things different from just playing piano, it's quite nice to use that split. You can use any sound on the left. I could have had that choir or the strings, but the bass guitar is quite a nice way of doing it. Okay, another thing is Yamaha, with their stage pianos, they're very sympathetic towards people that go out and play live performances, be it solo or be it in groups. Now, when you play in a group or a band, if you play at some volume, sometimes the sound of the piano can get lost in the big cacophony of noise that is the band mix. Okay, so on P115 there's a button called Sound Boost, which just sets the EQ perfectly. It takes away some of the lower and the middle end of the sound and cuts through the band mix very well. I'll give you an example. If I put this on ordinary piano and play a bit. That's without the sound boost on. With it turned on, we get the little beepy sound. So it's a little bit more trebly. It's going to cut through the band mix a little bit more. Very nice idea. Now on P255, what we have is a professional level EQ with sliders, which means I can completely tailor the EQ as it comes through the speakers. For example, if I'm playing a solo and I want to take away that lower end because the bass guitar in the band has got the bass covered, I can take out the bass end by lowering the bass slider. So I'll put it back on ordinary piano first of all. Take the splits off. So I've moved the lower slider right down. You can hear the difference. This is with it turned up. Turned down. So it's taken that out of the mix. So it allows me to play a bit more of a solo. And indeed I'm going to turn the higher end up a little bit. So it works very well, and it's very nice to have it just at the touch of a couple of sliders up there, 3 sliders, so when you're playing live you can just do it on the fly as you go. It's a nice little touch, that is. So both of these pianos, what do you put them on is a question. I've got them on double braced X stands here, which you can buy from our website. Now these are great because they fold up flat, very easy to take around, but there are nicer looking stands anyway, that you can get as well. Wooden legs, there should be a picture coming up now, wooden legs on the side. You can even fit the 3 pedals on there if you want to. Now I've got them both in black here, but they are both available in white as well if you would prefer. Now one other thing I just want to talk about quickly is what we call string resonance. And it's not as boring as that sounds, believe it or not. I quite like it. It's the effect in a digital piano. It's trying to simulate on a real piano when that hammer hits a string, the string vibrates and the strings next to it are affected by that vibration, and they themselves begin to produce sounds, and that's called string resonance. And the P255 has that built into it as well, or something trying to simulate that, and it gives you, as I'll demonstrate, a lovely howling, haunting, swelling sound that you just don't get, and it really makes the P115 sound a bit dry in comparison. Now I'm not going to criticise it too much because it's under £500. It's a terrific piano, but the musician in me it plays this, and because of that string resonance and the higher polyphony note and the way the keys feel, I'm more drawn to it because I feel like I can get more response from it. I'll give an example. So I'll just play something where I'm just brushing the keys, and have a listen to that swelling, howling sound that it starts to make. It just comes through and it resonates and it sings and it howls. It sounds more like a piano. That's the one thing I can say about it. It just sounds more like a piano. Now the question is, what piano should I buy? If you're comparing the two, honestly, there's no comparison. P255 is better, much better, twice as good, I would say. But P115 for under £500, I think is the best piano you can get. But if you're comparing the two, you're probably comparing the wrong two, because P255 is much better in my opinion. So if you're a beginner, then P155 is great, but beware, you're going to outgrow it as you get better. Now, how quickly you progress is a question for you rather than a question for me, but eventually you're going to learn its limitations. But P255 you're not going to outgrow for a very long time. Indeed, I'll probably be happy with one of these in my own home, so it's the kind of thing that's going to last a long time. If you're a gigging musician and you are comparing the two, then there is no competition. P255 is the one that you want, because when you're on stage, if you play with feeling, you play with emotion, P255 is going to give you more. You're going to get more response from it. It's a better piano. So if you have any questions on either of these, please put your question in the comments below and we'll do our best to answer them. You can always give us a ring as well or send us an email. Have a look at our website ePianos.co.uk for the latest deals and offers on these pianos. You can buy them on their own, you can buy them in bundles, it's up to you. Have a look and thank you for watching.